We are going to be focusing on what we call the real implementation and execution. We don't want to deal with the investment process itself because, again, this is not local investing. This is global and international investing. We'd rather have someone else deal with the intricacies of that, and we get to focus on what we need to do best, which is to do our asset allocation, make sure that we have the right mindset and the right attitude and behavior towards money management. So let me tell you the real anchor for all that has been said. On our end, the real anchor is this: the fact that we have to achieve financial objectives regardless of the situation. Wala pong dahilan kung masamang ekonomiya ng Pilipinas, hindi naman magbabago retirement age mo. Hindi naman magbabago yung edad na mag-aaral ang anak mo. Your goals have to be within a certain timeline and you cannot postpone them. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na, saka ko napapaaralin ng anak ko pag maganda ng economy. Hindi pwede. We will have to achieve what our objectives are regardless of the situation. And if we cannot achieve it totally within the local market, we will have to go to international markets to get the results that we have to. Second, focus on goals will change perspectives. Kasi po, pag nakatutok tayo sa economy, binabantayan natin ang nangyayari sa ekonomiya, medyo tatamaan po ang ating emosyon. And when you get to use emotions in driving your investment processes, investment decisions, delikado po yan. Mas maganda, we stay focused on our goals kasi pag nakafocus kayo sa inyong goals, guess what? You will have more clarity as to your time horizon. You're going to be having more clarity when it comes to focusing on your risk appetite and more important, personal and controllable stuff like this. And lastly, discipline and strategy will always be the success drivers. Whatever happens to an economy, whatever happens to an environment. This is something that I've always said many, many times. We can never control the weather, but we control our ship. Diba? Tayo po ang magdadala ng ating bangka. Tayo ang mag-a-adjust ng ating timon. We will always adjust the sails no matter how the wind is blowing. We have to reach point A to point B no matter how the wind is performing. So ganun din po sa investments. Kailangan pa rin tayong makabili ng ating dream house, ang ating talagang fabled dream vacation. And we should be able to retire within the lifestyle that we want. And we also have to educate our children or maybe start the business that we've dreamt of. We cannot get into excuses just because the economy is performing as of a particular way. Because that's already a given. Ito po talagang sabi namin sa Rampver Financials, paulit-ulit, management and optimization in the arena of investments has become more difficult and challenging. Really difficult. Why? Again, complexity. Ang dami pong tinatawag na decision factors na involved. Doon pa lang sa shinare ni Jake kanina, di ba? Gusto ko na sanang sabihin sa sarili ko, hindi ko na iintindihin yan, bahala na muna kayo. What I will focus on will be the way I will be managing myself and my goals and my investment journey. Yung detalye na saan mag-i-invest, anong ekonomiya ang babawi, who's going to be stronger, Europe, Japan, the US, I will give it to the people who take this as a full-time job because complexity is not something I'd want to deal with at this day and age. Second, there would really be volatility. Nakita naman natin yan. Yung tinatawag nating black swan. Hindi na nga black swan eh. Kasi almost every year and even more than twice or thrice a given year, lumalabas na sila. So there are rapid and unexpected challenges. And certainly there is uncertainty. There is a lot of unknowns that we know. Alam niyo, magkaiba yun ha. Yung alam mo na may unknown, hindi mo siya naintindihan, pero alam mo nandyan siya. Iba po yung ambiguity. Ambiguity is you don't even know what you don't know. That is so much of a blind spot. That's going to be very, very different. You don't even know what you don't know. And because of that, how are you going to navigate? How are you going to, manage this? Alam niyo po, ang kalaban ng VUCA, ang katapat niyan, is expertise and experience. Expertise and experience, the knowledge of markets. Hindi pa nga po perfect yun eh. Kahit mismong yung fund managers, nahihirapan, tayo pa kaya. So kailangan po naisip natin, we will have to navigate this with the help of people we can partner with so that ganito na lang po, no? Yung sinasabi ko, to each his own, to each his best. If I'm going to be managing my cash flow better, I'll manage my cash flow. But if someone can manage the way I will invest it, then I'll probably pass that on because it's easier to pass that than to deal with that. So, as we see this, nakita natin kanina yung may chart na pinakita si Jake. I call that a heat map. Pero ang pinakita ni Jake is the globe. Ako po, isisingit ko dito sa heat map na ito, yung Pilipinas. Now, Philippine equity would be your dark blue and the light blue will be Philippine fixed income. Okay? So tingnan nyo, nasa ng Pilipinas dyan? Di ba? Many times between 2006 and 2014, nasa top tier, top performer. Di ba? Pero in the last 3 to 4 years, abay nasa ilalim po siya. So, first of all, it is clear that there is no asset class that consistently outperforms. Kung hindi, doon na lang tayong lahat. Di ba? Pero since palipat-lipat nga, certain economies, certain markets perform in different ways at different times, it is incumbent upon us to participate and make sure we are part of the growing economies and we lower our exposure to the not-so-growing economies. Pero pinakamadali siguro is, ilagay na natin yung sarili natin doon sa babakas na lang tayo sa the big boys para sila nang bahalang tumingin sa lahat ng yan. And our job is basically to work on our base, to work on our investment portfolio. And as we diversify, we get the best of the best. I can say that. Yung po ang role natin eh. Asset allocation. Kasi tinatanong kong marami, ba't ka ba talaga nag-i-invest? Do you invest to make more money? Or do you invest to achieve financial goals? I think for many of us who understand investing, we know what the answer is. If you invest to make more money, maliligaw po tayo dyan. Mawawala po tayo sa landas. Bakit? You will always run after yields and you will be forgetting risks and you will be second-guessing based on goals. Pinaka-focus po tayo dapat sa goals at yung goals ang magdadala ng investment horizon at ng risk profile natin na dapat nakamatch. In fact, we should be doing asset allocation in a very, very progressive and dynamic way. Asset allocation is when we invest in different asset classes. Iba-iba po, time deposits, stocks, bonds, managed funds, real estate, insurance, and even cash. And not only that, hindi lang different asset classes, dapat different markets din. Kasi alam niyo po, yung performance ng assets na ito in different markets change. And they're not going to be the same. So pinaka-importante po, pag medyo meron kang naiiwan, meron kang umaabante. We have to build a portfolio that balances risk and rewards based on our risk tolerance, investment horizons, and goals and objectives. Our risk profile and our time horizon will be a great determinant of our goals. At, sorry po, no, i-refute ko lang yung napakahihilig mag-trade dyan. Wala akong anything against you. If you can handle it really well, fine. I go for it because I've done that in my younger life. Alam niyo po, ayoko namang sabihin na huwag niyong gawin yung ginawa ko. No, there were times when I did very well. But as I've said, the complexity of today's markets put me in a situation where I cannot deal with it in the same way. Plus, there are so many things I've been doing. Sa introduction pa lang po ni Kim kanina, nakita nyo naman how much time I have to devote to all of those roles. So, since hindi ako pwedeng tumutok sa market, what do? I let other people manage my portfolio. I manage the allocation, they manage the particulars. And let me tell you, I realized this after so many years. Maybe a little too late. Wala naman palang hinahatid na dagdag masyado. Yung security selection, yung market timing, yung other factors. I-total po natin ang impact ng lahat ng yan, may less than 10%. 91% is driven by asset allocation. So what am I telling you? All the headache, lahat ng sakit ng ulo, lahat ng focus, yung pala, ang makukuha mo extra 9% lang. The real driver is asset allocation. So if much of long-term portfolio performance is driven by asset allocation, at alam natin na pag properly asset allocated ka, hindi sasakit ang ulo mo, ay dapat po pala, ganun na lang. Siguro kung maaga-aga kong nalaman ito, palagay ko mas marami akong buhok ngayon. I'm really sorry for that, but I really had to share that with you. Kasi po, pag diversified ka, okay? You lower your overall standard deviation. Your portfolio will have typical asset classes that react differently in different markets. So tama yung sinasabi ni Jay kanina, meron kang challenged, getting into difficult times, meron ka rin namang umaakyat at medyo coming up with a recovery. So cycles are different around the world and cycles are very different between asset classes. You will have to get away from putting your eggs in one basket. Everything in the portfolio does not go up together. Everything in the portfolio doesn't go down together either. At dahil po dito, meron tayong tinatawag na downside protection. Kahit papano po, hindi ka basta-basta lulubog. Hindi ka concentrated when it comes to risk. Pero tatapatin ko kayo, ganun din naman yan pagdating sa upside. Kasi syempre, diversified ka, hindi ka all in. So pag umaakyat din yung asset class na ganun, hindi ka completely participating there. But say, I have to share this with you and very, very important principle that I hold close dear to my heart. The fact that you take care of the downside, the upside will take care of itself. Kasi po, pag minsan, masyado ko naghahabol sa upside at hindi ko nakita yung downside, yun po ang wag-wipe out sa atin. So, mas mabuti pang i-limit ko yung downside kahit limited yung upside, but at the very least, over the long term, my upside is set. And with diversification comes discipline. Alam nyo, human nature typically forces us to question strategies that aren't working. Nag-invest ka, bumaba. Bakit ba? Mali yata ang ginagawa ko. 4 years na ako, 5 years na ako, lugi pa rin ako. Alam nyo po, from 1997 to 2002, didn't we go through the same phase? 5 years of almost nothing until something happened in 92 where we, in 2002 where we started flying. But in 1997 till 2002, we were at the doldrums. And sure enough, ito, yung cycle na ito, yung 2014 hanggang ngayon, parang walang nangyayari. Ang tagal na. Ganyan po talaga eh. The Taipans, they know how to deal with this. They just continuously invest. And they make bets in the market when markets are down. Unfortunately, the common people, kami pong mga tinatawag na, di ba? Insulares at peninsulares, di ba? Tayo yung natatakot. Tayo yung pag may masamang nangyayari, tatakbo na tayo kagad. Sila, sinasalubong nila yan. Tuloy-tuloy lang sila. And over the years, that's the reason why they have conglomerates and they are taipans. They just don't divest because markets are wrong. Their patience is built in their strategy and discipline. There has to be faith in time-tested long-term strategies because they do work. You have to have the patience for it. It does work. This minimizes the impact of emotions, most especially when the news and the media sensationalize most ups and downs of the market. So what do we have to do? What do we have to do? The must-dos of times of uncertainty and volatility, the must-dos for investors at this particular time of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. First and foremost, manage your emotions. Do not panic. Do not panic. Manage your emotions. When you're managing your emotions, it's easier to manage your portfolio. You are not colored by fear or greed. Next, keep your sights on your goals. Eventually, yan pa rin po ang mga magdadala ng ating disiplina, ng ating strategiya. It's very important that we know we're investing to achieve goals, and the goals will have to be the beacon that has to guide us towards a particular direction. And certainly, dapat po alam natin ang nangyayari. And let me thank you for being here today because quite frankly, alam nyo na nandito kayo para makasagap kayo ng impormasyon, the facts, taking out the cloud of emotions, taking out, posturing. This is real talk because what Jake and Lercy showed you are hard numbers. Hindi po yan haka-haka. They are all factual. They are more anchored market information that we have to heed. Hindi po yan yung chismisan, mga marites na magtutulak lang ng kaba sa marami sa atin. Be well informed. And lagi po naming sinasabi, we at Rampver Financials would like to be partners for you. We'd like to be partners for you and we'd like to be able to guide you through this financial journey. Again, kami po ang partner nyo. Bigyan nyo po kami ng pagkakataon. Give us that opportunity to guide you. Give us the leeway and the real backup of our mission and purpose. Kasi po, yan naman ang talagang gusto naming gawin. And then, let's evaluate our portfolio regularly. Let us review. Tama ba po ang takbo niyan? May kailangan bang baguhin? Sobra bang concentrated sa isang market? You will have to do that. And then lastly, please be ready to seize opportunities. Great value surface during the worst times, during the bad times. Alam niyo po yung sinasabi ni Lercy at ni Jake are three very important things that we have to keep in mind. Three very important things. Obviously, yung number one nila, clear na clear, is diversification. Diversification gives us the opportunity to participate in markets na, alam niyo po, nung panahon ko, kailangan milyon-milyon para maka-invest ka abroad. Milyon-milyon. Now they have made it affordable. Now I think the word is democratized. Saan ka nakakita? 10,000? Global portfolio? Nung panahon ko po, 10,000. Wala ka mabibili nun. Kahit concentrated risk, ni hindi ka makakapag-invest because no international broker will attend to you if you only have 10,000. And then lastly, the chance to be able to participate in markets. Can you imagine that you're investing in the United States, you're investing in the names? Yung pinakita lang ni Lercy na slide na may mga logo? Wow! Years ago, we took a lot of pride in saying, we've invested in Jollibee, we've invested in Ayala Land, we've invested in, great companies, SM, all of that. E ngayon po, hindi na ganun lang, di ba? Hopefully, we can also be proud enough to be investors that we can consider global. Di ba? Yung meron ka sa Amazon, meron ka ring investment sa Facebook, yung ganun ba? So it's very different, and it really ushers us in to a more, anchored and robust and dynamic investing. So what are my tips for strategic portfolio management? You have to watch your cash flows. Mahirap naman po yung mga ngailangan tayo, at pag nangailangan tayo, kailangan nating magbenta ng ating mga posisyon. No, let us not put ourselves in a precarious position. Kahit po nag-i-invest tayo, dapat secure na secure ang ating emergency funds. Hindi tayo dapat mangailangan to the point na magbebenta tayo ng investment to create cash flows. The worst time to invest and divest is when you need money. The best time to divest is when you don't need the money, which means you're just divesting because it's the right move. So it's very important that we have the right cash flows and emergency funds. Ample enough emergency funds to weather any storm. Second, adequacy of security and protection. It's not an accident that I'm saying this because Sun Life is our partner. Pero alam nyo naman po, sila rin ang number 1 insurance company. Dapat secure din tayo sa ating mga coverages. Alam din natin na for anything that can happen, we have something that our loved ones would be better off having during real times of difficulty, just in case we won't be around to guide them towards the future. And then let's review our asset allocation parameters. Are we in the right markets? Or concentrated market ba tayo? Nasa Pilipinas lang ba tayo nakataya? Or international ang ating taya? Para po doon sa wala pang international exposure, please contemplate on having that. And I guess it's very clear that Sun Life or SLAMCI, their funds would be one of our best options. They're practically the top performers in this market. Next, asset class exposure. Siyempre po, hindi naman lagi dapat stocks and mutual funds. Tayo ba po ay may enough na fixed income? Tayo ba po ay meron ding mga tinatawag na, real assets like real estate, maybe some of us, commodities. Kailangan po medyo diversified din as to asset class. How about industry and sector exposure? I mentioned ni Jake, may issue sa inflation, may issue sa rising interest rates. Just by saying that, there are sectors and industries that will be hit badly by those factors. But there are industries and sectors that will do well because of those factors. Tayo ba ay nakalipat o nakabalanse man lang towards having exposure on the industries and sectors that will do well in this particular kind of landscape? And lastly, currency exposure. Sabi ni Lercy, kung meron kayong dollars, ayan ang World Voyager. Hindi ganun lang. Alam nyo, ipupush ko kayo more than Lercy has pushed this. Kung wala kayong dollar, kung wala kayong stronger currency, okay? Just make sure you have new exposure to those. Ibang-iba pa rin po. Let's just face it. Maybe about 2-3 years ago, we thought the Philippines has the strong peso or a strong currency. That is temporary. Technically, because of our size, because of our revenues, we will always have a weaker currency. So exposure to more internationally accepted stronger currencies would be a must. So I will, probably advise some of you to have at the very least dollar exposure. Para po kahit papano meron kang stronger currency hold sa iyong portfolio. Peso or dollar cost averaging, yung tuloy-tuloy na pag-i-invest. It works. But they work very well if you are in the right investments. Most recently, hindi ko na po tinatimingan ng market. They know this. Even in Voyager, even in Wave, tuloy-tuloy lang po ang paglalagay ko if I will have the extra funds that I can set aside for the next 3 to 5 years. I manage myself. I don't manage the money. I let other people manage the money to take out the headache, that I don't want to handle myself. And why is that? Because this whole thing is about managing risks, not returns. At a time of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, ang minamanage po natin downside. If you manage the downside, the upside will take care of itself. Again, thank you po for being with us in this webinar this afternoon. And as always, I put this as my last slide. Always anchor everything on what truly matters. In the end, it's all about people special to us. Our family, our loved ones, people who are special to our hearts. Eventually, we do what we do for all of them. And that's the reason why I'd want you to focus on our goals for them, not simply on the money you'll make by investing. With that, you're going to be in the right pathway and you will be succeeding in a much better clip than what other people encounter when they're dealing with this VUCA world. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat and blessings always.